Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Miller. Every week, I chat with fascinating people from all walks of life in order to bring you knowledge, inspiration, and insight. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend. This is the Jeremy Miller Podcast. Collin Cottrell, welcome to the podcast, dude. I'm stoked to have you here.
It's Cottrell.
Cottrell? Let's take it again. I thought it was Cottrell. I'm telling everybody
it's all good, man. Honestly, we'll just roll with that because here's the thing: like everybody says Cottrell. It's obviously there is Cottrells out there,
right?
But my grandfather told my mother it's Cottrell, so that's what we roll with. We roll with Cottrell, but
Collin Cottrell.
It doesn't. It really doesn't bother me, honestly. So
I like it, dude. There's a thing with this podcast. I feel like almost everyone starts with me butchering somebody's last name, and then them. It's always like an ancestor, like their grandpa or like their great grandpa or something along the lines is like, "Hey, we need to say it this way," or like, "This is the way it's said," even if it doesn't like grammatically look that way or whatever. But I don't know.
It's one of those hard things too. When you start podcasting, it's like, how do you say this guy's name? You'll see a name and it's like, hold on, this is a really easy one. Is this really how you say his name? And then you ask him, you're like, no, it's like totally different.
That's what I thought was with this one. I was like
my
okay.
name.
Because I had last week was Frankie Dades.
Okay, yep.
And I was like, okay, I said it right, but his real name was like Papadadis or something. I'm like, what in the world? Anyways, the last name's I thought this was gonna be the one where like I got this one, and I've already fucked it up. All right,
your dreams come crashing down.
So I initially heard of you from our mutual friend Ryan Callan.
Yep.
Probably saying his last name wrong too.
No, that's right.
Okay, I got one right. But it was right after he finished up Rocky Raccoon 100 miler, and he's like, dude, you got to meet my friend Collin. Like he just finished up the Rocky Raccoon, it was his first 100, but in addition to that, you had recently lost 100 pounds as well. I think it was within like a year or something. And so I was like, dude, I got to know who this Collin guy is. So I reached out to you on Instagram. We've like kind of stayed in touch since then. And now following all the other stuff that you're doing, I'm like, wow, this guy is kind of a renaissance man doing all these different things. So I love talking to interesting people, and I want to hear more about your story. So I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, that I appreciate being here, man. Excited that we got connected through Ryan, who was my running coach, and
nice.
We also worked together as well. So I was coaching for another person. I was coaching under a person, like fitness coaching, and Ryan was one of our sales guys. So we got to know each other pretty good. He's from Minnesota as well.
That's right,
like I am. So we built this cool bond. He coached me, to get me going on the Rocky Raccoon. And he's actually the one who was like, dude, you got to do, because I went to him like 5 months before Rocky Raccoon. And I was like, I got this crazy idea. I think I want to run 100 miles, and he's
Had you already lost the weight at that point?
I had lost 80 pounds at that point, I think, or 70 or 80 pounds, somewhere around 75, 80 pounds at that point over a period of a year and a half. So I just ran a 5K, my second 5K ever. My first real competitive 5K, the farthest I've ever ran. I'll be honest with you. I mean, like as a competitively runner. And I was like, man, I kind of got this crazy idea. I think it's going to really push me to my limits or push me where I need to go, next in life. I was like, I want to do 100 miles. You think I could do that? Should I train for that in the next 5 months? He's like, absolutely. He's like, you've already almost lost 100 pounds. He's like,
oh my God.
This is going to be called lose 100, run 100. And I was like, all right, let's go.
You ran a 5K and the next thought you had was, can I run 100 miles?
Yeah.
That's insane.
I know it sounds crazy, but it's like, I don't know, just something over the last couple of years has really put me in this place where it's like, every time I do something really, really, really hard that pushes me super far out of my comfort zone, that's where the most growth happens. And I think you could probably relate with that in the last couple of years of your life too, because I followed you enough to see like where you're at, how you're pushing hard too. So I think especially as men, like when we push towards those uncomfortable areas, those hard things, like just gets us out of that comfort zone where it just gives us that opportunity to grow. Right. I read The Comfort Crisis.
I haven't read that.
Michael Easter, dude, what an amazing book, a really, really good book. And that book really, actually I started reading that or listening to that book while I was running and training for that 5K. And I remember thinking, because he talks about the Muskogee, you know what a Muskogee is?
I feel like, just explain it.
Basically, a Muskogee is like, it's like a challenge that you do for yourself to push yourself out of the comfort zone. And you don't really tell anybody. You don't put it out where like on social media. You don't put it out there at all. You just kind of keep it between you and your friends and a few close people. And really the idea is you do something super hard that pushes you out of your comfort zone. You really have to train hard. You really have to push hard. but you don't want to die. Obviously, that's like one of the rules. You're not supposed to die, and you're not supposed to tell people about it until afterwards, or after you've accomplished it, or failed it, whatever, whatever you've done. But I started thinking about that. I was like, man, that's kind of a really cool concept, like the Muskogee idea. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for a Muskogee right now, but I definitely am ready to like get out of that comfort zone and start pushing really hard towards things. Because obviously when you lose 70, 80 pounds, like that's really hard in itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially coming from COVID, I gained 50, 60 pounds over that 2020, super complacent, not leading my family. I'm married with three. I had 2 kids at the time, so I wasn't leading from the front. I was depressed. I was just had a lot of issues going on, man. And that year in itself, just mentally, was not a good year for I think most people.
Yeah.
So from there, I went from obviously losing a bunch of weight to getting to this point where it's like I trained for this 5K. Like we went back home to Minnesota to visit my family, and I saw there was this like the local 5K going, the summer 5K, and I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of fun to like competitively run that and see how good I can do. I've never done a competitive race. Honestly, straight up, I don't even like running, to be honest with you. I think I told you that before when we first talked. Like I'm not a runner. Like I played college football. Like I like hunting and hiking and stuff like that. So I'm cool into that, but I like to lift weights, man. Like I'm a power guy. Like I played college football. So, me lifting is my zone. But getting into running, I was like, man, this is something that's going to really push me out of my comfort zone, because I don't like it. First of all, second of all, like you really have to train hard for it. So that's entered this 5K. I ended up, I think I ran 22:23 in that 5K. So, which is not, I guess I found out that's not too bad for somebody who's
sub 8 pace. So it's like run 7 something, I think.
Yeah, I was like, I think it was like a 7:15 pace or 7:20 pace or something like that, which good. I had done a couple runs before that where I was running 3-4 miles under a 7-minute pace. So I was like, man, I know what I'm capable of. Minnesota's super humid, so that threw me off. but anyway, man. So
more than Texas?
Yeah, well, more than San Antonio. San Antonio's got more of that dry heat where we're at. It can get humid, don't get me wrong, but Minnesota's like 100. It's like Houston. It's like 100% humidity. It's horrible.
That's rough.
So I just remember that morning we were like running. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. You're going threshold the whole time. You're just going balls to the wall. But I ended up getting second place in my age class, and I'm like, man, this is kind of cool. Like this is sweet, man. Maybe I have a career in running. Not really. I hate it, but
I mean, especially for a bigger guy, that's super respectable time.
And I was 220, 225 at that point, 6'3", 225. So I wasn't at my smallest point. I still had, maybe I was 215, 220, somewhere in there. But anyway, not that it matters, but it does help you obviously as you lose a little bit of weight and get in better shape to run faster. But
you have that dog in you though, that's required to push yourself to those limits.
I think that's the side I have. I think just growing up in a small town in Minnesota, hard work mentality, farming, ranching, I've always been the underdog in my life. I've always been the guy who, he can't do it. You know what I mean? People always said that. So I think you get that little chip on your shoulder, and I've always had that little chip on my shoulder, which honestly, I've kind of outgrown that chip now. I've got to this point where it really doesn't matter. I'm not trying to prove anybody wrong anymore. It's more like I'm just trying to show myself what I can do now, which is a really cool place to be. Yeah. But I think having that chip on your shoulder at times is a really good thing too. Having that, that other side of it. So for me, it was like, man, I kind of had this chip on my shoulder. Even when I was doing that 5K, I kind of had that chip on my shoulder where I was like, what else could I do to really prove people wrong? Like, this guy who's 290 plus pounds over, just a year and a half ago, not that long ago, really.
Yeah. When did you start kind of losing the weight?
So it was the end of 2020. It was right around Christmas time. So my son was due to be born on Christmas Day, and he wasn't born yet. He was delayed, but we were visiting my in-laws. We were staying at their house, and because we were getting ready to obviously have our son, we were gonna go to have the child close by there by my in-laws house. And anyway, so I remember so we're staying at their house. We're not at our own house. And I remember taking a shower one morning. It was Christmas morning or the day before Christmas. I can't remember exactly, but I got out of the shower and looked in the mirror and I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And you see yourself butt naked and you're like, man, I am out of shape. What's going on? I was big guy, and it just hit me in that moment. It could have been any other day, just that moment. I think the idea my son was going to be born, just a lot of things going on, a new year coming, 2020 was finally ending. I remember looking in the mirror and just thinking, man, I am depressed. I'm out of shape. I'm not living to my full. I'm not leading my family. I'm not leading my children. I'm not leading my potential, my future son.
Right.
I'm an example to them, and I can't even lead myself. So I remember just thinking in that moment, I truly believe it was God. Like he kind of just opened my eyes in that moment, woke me up, and I had that self-reflection where it's like, hey, Collin, it's time for you to grow up. It's time for you to quit making the excuses and take ownership over your life, because this isn't anybody else's fault. This is your own fault. And like it hit me in that moment. It's like, take ownership, and
Yeah.
I'm a big
Dang.
big Jocko guy. So obviously like that really resonates with me, but it was like, all right, it's time to start building some good habits in my life. I mean, I've built business. I've had good habits in my life. I played college sports at a high level. There was different spurts and times in my life where I've done really well, but then it was like it wasn't consistent. There wasn't that consistency you need as a high level, high caliber man, I believe. And that was the reflection of who I was, is not being a consistent person, of being a person of inconsistency. I was like, I don't want to be that person. I want to start new businesses. I want to lead my family. I want to inspire and motivate and make an impact on the people around me. So that's when I said, you know what, today's the day I'm going to make a change, and not just like this quick change where, 6 months later you fall off the bandwagon and it's back to it. It was like, no, like I know God's going to give me the strength in the opportunity here to actually make that change, but I have to take ownership. I have to really start to build real habits, do it the right way, not just some quick change, overnight change.
It's a whole mindset
Yeah.
and like lifestyle change you have to have. You can't, like you said, you can't just have the 6 minute abs or whatever, like the instant gratification and think, dude, that's such a problem. I think in today's society, especially,
I agree.
Is like everybody wants that one thing that's going to make the difference, that one thing that's going to turn their life around. Like say you're training for a marathon or something. It's like not one workout is gonna, make or break anything. It's like, it's not one cheat meal. It's not one healthy meal, whatever. If you're trying to lose weight, like it's just the culmination of all these little things. And it's a whole lifestyle change that you have to have.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a performance coach now. I'm helping guys on their fitness and their habits, obviously, because I've made a big change in my life and have learned from my own mistakes and learned from my own changes as well. So a lot of times I'm telling my clients, it's like, hey, we're playing the long game here. We're not playing the short game. Like the short game is bull crap. Like that's what social media and these fake, personas and stuff on social media want to sell you, but it's really, it's about the consistency. It's about the long-term growth that you have. And then, like you said, that lifestyle change that you make through that consistency over time. This isn't an overnight change. You know what I mean? Like, can you make a mindset change overnight? For sure. I did in that moment. I had a wake up call, but the change really took a long time. So my goal in that moment was, what can I do to start making some small changes? Because I knew in that moment, like I can't just do this overnight. Like I've got to make small changes and let that snowball into these bigger things. Because I wasn't doing that in the past. I was trying to do all these quick changes all the time, like we were talking about. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to start off, especially because I knew I had a child coming, pretty quick. It's going to be chaos.
Scary.
It's going to be chaos. You know what I mean? At that point, I had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and then I had a newborn coming. So, I mean, it's chaotic, it's life. But I was like, I can't stack everything on top, because that's when you fail,
Right.
So I said, I'm going to do a 1-hour workout 5 days a week. That's it. Bare minimum, start out 1-hour workout 5 days a week. And like, okay, it is what it is. So I started getting that 1-hour workout.
Where'd you get that from? Like, did you just make it up on your own? Or?
I just said, what can I do? What's the lowest hanging fruit? Something I could do that's going to start making change in my life, to start because I think just being a person that's built business and been an athlete in my life, like I always remember like the times when I have stayed consistent, or when I'm not trying to stack all these things on top of each other at one time.
Just like moving the needle just a little bit.
Little by little. And actually another part of that too that I learned was actually from, do you know who Dave Ramsey is?
Yeah.
Ramsey Solutions. Yeah. They do the debt snowball stuff.
The total money makeover.
Yeah, total money. So my wife and I had been doing that and working towards getting debt free as well. So it was kind of like that mindset was starting to be in my head, not just with money, but now with my life and my habits. So Shout out to Dave, man, on that, because that's huge. Like
Yeah.
that snowball effect, that momentum effect that you have through the consistency over time. So yeah, started getting getting that 1 hour. Whether it was here, my stipulation was a 1 hour walk, a 1 hour lift,
Okay.
or a hike or something. Just some
moving your body.
movement, just
Yeah.
basic movement where I'm actually working a sweat up though for that hour. You know
Right.
what I mean? It had to be like working up an actual sweat. So I think at that point I was doing, 2 or 3 lifts a week and then 2 or 3 walks a week or something like that. I was trying to balance it out as
Had
much
you
as I
done
could.
anything up to that point? Like, I know you played college football, but like before you started the 5 days a week, did you go from just basically nothing, like just being super?
I hadn't probably worked out for a year, honestly,
Dang.
because COVID hit, early in the year. I had actually been on a workout routine where I was doing really well, but the gym shut down we were in a small town at that point in central Texas, and all the gyms shut down. So that just like in that moment you're like, oh well, screw this. You know what I mean?
That's enough of an excuse
Yeah,
to just be like, if nobody else is doing it,
exactly.
I don't need to do it.
And
Yeah.
I was an excuse maker, 100%. That's who I was. I mean, that's who I've been for a long time in my 20s. Just make the excuse, smallest things, and I was done. So yeah, I hadn't really worked out for probably at least 10 months for sure. You know what I mean? And my wife was pregnant at this point, so she's not wanting to move too much. So I'm drinking booze, we're eating ice cream and cookies every night, and eating out a lot because remember a lot of takeout food was coming home. I wasn't really working. I'm a marketing guy by trade, so several of my marketing clients, their budgets went away at that point. So I actually did start a side hustle during that time and started doing pressure washing, so that was kind of getting me outside for a little bit, but like it wasn't enough to like do anything for me. I was still eating and the nutrition wasn't there and all the other things. The habits just weren't there. You know what I mean? So I was like, I know I have to do something. It's got to be low hanging fruit. I got to work into this where I build this out to be a long-term thing. And I think sometimes we get to this point in our life where it just hits us at the right time where we're ready for that too. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes we're just not ready at a point in our life to be who we have the potential to be, maybe, if that's the right way to say it. And I think my potential was at that point where it's like, all right, I'm like, I think I was 32-ish at that time. So I was into my early 30s now, wasn't in my 20s anymore. It's like my maturity level maybe had went up a little bit. My wisdom level maybe was coming up. And I also had started to invest in bringing mentors around me. That was a really big piece to that puzzle.
That's a really powerful thing.
So I was part of a mastermind group of men, and those men were speaking into my life. I had a couple close friends, manly friends that were telling me the truth about things like, hey man, you have all this potential. You're very smart. You've built businesses. We've seen spurts of a lot of success in your life. You need to pull this together and like make this a long-term consistent thing. You're looked at as this guy who's not a consistent person right now. And that's detrimental to who you are and where you could go.
That's probably not what you wanted to hear in that moment.
I didn't, man. I've never wanted anybody to speak to me in that way. And I think because people tried to speak to me in that way in the past, and I pushed them out of my life because of that, and only let the people come around me that I was comfortable around, like that put me in a really bad place.
That's
what
tough.
I mean? So, and I think a lot of guys can probably relate to that because I know a lot of guys that are in that same place, that where they don't want to hear that spoke to them. They don't want to hear the bad stuff. And we never want to hear the bad stuff about ourselves. But when we do, that pushes us again out of our comfort zone to push us towards the greatness that we do have.
It's easy to be around people who are just pumping you up all the time, telling you how great you are and you're so amazing, all that stuff. But sometimes like those aren't your real friends. Like they're just, I don't know. They're giving it to you because they want it back.
Correct.
But sometimes you need those people around you. They're like, dude, you got to get your shit together. Like those are your real friends, I think.
They really
honest
are.
with you.
And I would say, man, I got to give a lot of credit to my wife too in that moment, because my wife and I, we've had some ups and downs, which I've talked about on other podcasts. So if anybody wants to go back and search me up and listen to some of my podcasts, there's a lot of cool stories there about my wife and I's relationship. But one thing about my wife is she is very honest. She's an honest person, and she doesn't do it out of like trying to hurt me. She does it out of love because she cares about me and wants to see me be the best version of myself. So I give her a ton of credit. Like, she's always been real with me. Like, Collin, you're way out of shape. My wife is like, when we met, she had 6-pack abs. This girl is like,
Dang.
look, she's a beast. You know what I mean? Like, and she is, again, now she's still, after having 3 kids, she's a beast again. You know, it's awesome.
I love that.
But she was real with me, and I knew she was being real with me because I know her character. And so even though that is really hard to hear from your wife, I knew she was doing it because she really cared about me and wanted to see me become the best person I could be as well. So you start to bring those people around you, and you realize like, hey, this guy over here is saying this because he cares about me. He really wants to be my friend. He wants to see me succeed. My wife is doing this because she really cares about me. She wants to see me succeed. She wants to see our family flourish. You know, she wants to see our family grow and be the best. She wants to see me be a good dad. She wants me to be a good husband to her, you know? So all these things started to come into my life. And that's where I think my mindset definitely shifted. And it was like, okay, these people aren't against me. They're for me. This is my team. These are my people, you know? And so naturally, I think we start to want more and more of those people, and we start to learn the idea of investing in who you are and bringing those people. So I've hired coaches now, I pay for masterminds, I'm part of different communities and things like that. I'm even eventually going to start my own mastermind community because I feel like now I've learned a lot. I have a lot to offer and try to help, and I want to bring value to people. I want to make an impact on people. So there's a lot of really cool stuff happening around that. But for me, man, bringing the right people into my life in that moment was huge. And that was like that next step. That was that level up for me. It was like, all right, you're down here. Now you're up one more level. You're working out. You're bringing the right people in your life. Like, what's next? So now it's like starting to build that momentum. I got a couple months into, doing the workouts, the 1 hour workouts. So I got like 20 or 21 workouts in a month, which is cool. That consistency was there. I think they say 21 days is you build a habit in roughly 3 weeks or something like that. So I was starting to build those habits where that became easy for me. Now it's like, okay, now we can stack something on top of that. So I was like, man, I know my nutrition's not on point. I lost a couple pounds because I was making subtle changes, but I wasn't really making the changes I need to. So it's like, right, the nutrition needs to change. I need to kick up, and really look at my routine. Like, yeah, I'm getting in some workouts every week, but I'm not being super consistent in how I do that, what that looks like. So maybe I need to lift 3 days a week and cardio, and maybe, get some steps in every day on top of that. What's that look like?
When did you initially start the 5-day? Just remind me.
January 1st, 2021.
2021. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. I did the January 1st thing. The
but
cliche.
You actually stuck with it. That's the difference.
Literally, here we are. What?
I think so many people, it's like, it's so common. You hear about it all the time. Like, I think even like the gym statistics reflect it, where like gyms are packed. Everybody's got these new memberships. Everybody's so excited. They've got these like big New Year's resolution goals and all this. And then it's like by February, everybody's gone. And it's those same people who were there in December.
Yep.
And then, all those newbies, not all of them, but most of them end up leaving. But you're one of the rare ones that actually stuck with the New Year's resolutions.
And I think that really speaks to how I did it too, right? Yeah. Just understanding at that point, I was at a point where
just keep going.
I was at a point where I knew that, I was ready to truly make a change, and I kind of knew the steps that I needed to take to do that. So, luckily for me, I started making those changes and doing that. And so the next thing was nutrition. And I was like, man, I'm not super good I know my workouts. I know how to get a workout routine built out. So I was like starting to get steps in every day. I actually started training Jiu Jitsu as well, which was a big step up for me. That was the end of February of 2021. So I was training Jiu Jitsu, getting a lot more cardio in. I was lifting 3 to 4 days a week, not like anything crazy. Just
where'd you get the idea for jiu-jitsu? Is that from like Jocko or Rogan or those types of guys?
So one of my good friends, his name's Ryan Mickler. He's got a podcast called the Order of Man podcast. He's one of my mentors and one of my good friends. He's one of those guys who was speaking into my life at that time.
Nice.
And I got to give him a shout out too, because he's an amazing friend, an amazing guy, and just a great example of leadership, even though he has his own issues and own things he's working on. He leads from the front. And, he had talked a lot about jiu-jitsu to me individually and said, hey man, you're a former wrestler, like you're a college football player, you're an athlete. Like this would be a really good thing for you to try out. You should check it out. So I grew up in a small town. We didn't have jiu-jitsu. We had wrestling, obviously I wrestled, but I've been bouncing around over the years. So I never had a solid gym close by me, but I had always had it in the back of my head. Like if there's a solid gym close by me at some point, I think I'm going to try this out, at least go one time and see how it goes. So I ended up going to a jiu-jitsu gym that opened up like 5 miles from my house. So I had no excuses now, you know, on the south side of San Antonio. And so I went over there, and I remember the first day I walked in, and I'm, you know, at this point I'm still 280 pounds. You know what I mean? I'm a big guy, and 6'3", 280, like out of shape still, not, you know, not where I should be, but I'm looking around and there's all these little guys, little girls and stuff. And there's this guy, he's like 160 pounds, and he's like, oh, you want to train? You know, like, they kind of just throw you into the fire. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't like trying to beat me up or anything like that. Like I had enough grappling skills from being a wrestler to understand how things work. So a lot of times they won't throw the new people in if they don't have any clue, but I kind of had a base with my wrestling. Or so you know, we slap hands and we're just what we call rolling or grappling. And he whooped me, man. Like in 2 seconds, I was
the little 160-pound guy.
No doubt. Like he had me like that, and he did it over and over and over because you do a 5-minute round when you're practicing, and he did it like 5 or 6 times. Tapped me out. I mean, choking me out. I mean, ankle locks. I mean, all kinds of like he just destroyed me. And
that's humbling, dude.
Oh, dude, I was so humbled, but it was cool because my mindset in that moment was like, all right, just keep showing up, just keep working. Like, this is good. Like, you're sweating, but you're kind of enjoying. Like, jiu-jitsu is one of those things. It's not like running, where running, you're like, you have all this, you're thinking really deep about what you're doing, or it's right there in front of you. You know, like you're running and you're thinking about it. Whereas jiu-jitsu, like, you're trying to think about your moves. You're trying to think about what you're learning.
It's like a chess game, right?
It is kind of like a chess game, man. That's a great way actually to talk about it. Like you're thinking about it, but you're also playing at the same time. So there's a lot of mental, emotional, and even somewhat spiritual aspect of jiu-jitsu, because there's this Zen feel to it. You know what I mean? It's a martial art. So I think for me, like, that was a really good place for me to be in this moment. I didn't need this cardio that was going to make me overthink it. You know what I mean? I needed something like basketball or jujitsu or something like a sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was actually a really good alignment for me. Where
do you still roll?
I do. I haven't trained for about a month now. I hurt my shoulder pretty bad.
Oh, no.
I got a pretty bad bone bruise up here. So I've taken a break. I'm also training right now for the Mid-State Mile. I don't know if you know what Mid-State is.
I don't.
We'll have to.
I've heard of it. I'm not too familiar with it though.
You know, it's called the Murder Mile. It's out in Franklin, Tennessee, and it's a 1.1 mile loop, and it's a last man standing endurance event. So, but it's got 360 or 70 foot of elevation gain.
Is that the who puts that on? Is it Laz, the guy that does Barclays?
It's not. It's not. But
because I know they're in Tennessee.
They're
too.
friends with those people who do that. So it's that very much that, you know, that mental game as well as part of it, because of the elevation gain and loss during that event.
So it's a 1.1 mile loop.
Yep.
And how often do you do it?
20 minutes you have to complete it. So you have to complete it, which really, if you think about it, it's not hard, but now you factor in that elevation gain and loss. 370 feet of elevation gain is a lot in 1 mile. You know what I mean? So I'm training for that right now. I'm getting ready. That'll be mid-June. Chad Wright, you know who Chad Wright is? Yeah. Chad Wright has won that several times.
Oh, that's where I've heard of that from. Okay.
I'm trying to think of the other guy. His name's Ultra Dad, I think, on social media. He won it last year, I believe. I think it's been 128 miles, I think they got in 2 days or something like that. So I think there's like a mandatory a couple times where you have to take a 20-minute break legally or something like that in there. But it's pretty intense, man. My buddy, my best friend Tyler, he has ran it a couple times. He got like 9th or 10th place last year at 68 miles or something like that.
Does it factor out? Because I know, like with the Backyard Ultra, where it's like the 4.11 or whatever it is.
Yep.
It ends up being exactly 100 miles after 24 hours. Do you know if it's the same thing?
I think it's close to that. I think it's very, very close to that. Yeah, because it's like a 1.1.
Dude, how are you training for that? I don't even like. That's such a.
It's a secret. I can't tell you.
That's a new thing. These like Backyard Ultras, and I'm like, how do you even train for something like that?
Well, going from obviously running 100 miles, you know, Rocky Raccoon, which is fairly flat. You know, it's a pretty easy. Now, considering it's a 100-mile ultra, but for a 100-mile ultra, it's one of the easier ones. A lot of guys will PR there. A lot of people will run their first there. Admittedly, yeah, that's why I wanted to do that.
You're still running 100 miles.
You're still running 100 miles. Don't get me wrong. And I did it with the flu. So,
oh my god.
So we'll definitely have to talk about that. But that story, because I think that's a good one. But
yeah, definitely.
But for me right now, man, like I'm super immersed in my strength training. So I lift heavy still. Like I'm not letting up. Like I can, bench 350 pounds. I can squat 360, 370, and I deadlift over 400 pounds. So
Nice.
being in that, 1,000-pound club still, like I'm doing
Yeah.
that very consistently 3 days a week. Hitting that really hard, obviously with other movements as well as part of that.
Yeah.
But so that's number one to me. I think strength is a key to that because that's building up my
Dude,
legs,
it's
that's building my
crucial.
base. You know what I mean?
I would say that lifting is good for your body. It feels good. And then running is good for your mind. Like, I think you have to have the balance. Plus, also, running is arguably not amazing for your body.
Yeah.
And so having that balance with the strength training to like make sure that you are foundationally strong
Yes.
and just preventing injuries, because running is
Yes.
such a high impact sport. It's so easy to get
Yes.
injured. Yeah, that's such a, I feel like it's a movement kind of basically.
Yeah.
That's happening with like, it's being more and more accepted to be a bigger, stronger person and still
Yeah.
running fast. Too,
Correct.
and
correct.
running ultras. And
Well, we've seen that you can accomplish that now. You can do that. You can be a bigger, stronger guy, and it's not going to be detrimental to your to your speed and to your I mean, maybe it will a little bit, but here's the thing. My goal is never going to be to like win a speed race. That's just not who I am.
Right.
Now, you look at this 1.1 mile last man standing, that's a mental game as well, a strength and a mental game. So having the endurance and the mental side, I'm like, man, this could be my game. This could be where I mean, my goal is to win it. I won't lie. I'll say it right here. Like, my goal is to win that race. You know what I mean? I'm going into if I don't win this race, like it's going to be a letdown for me.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
So that's
you also can't be a 300-pound guy and running 100 miles or so on.
Correct. Yeah.
So
yeah.
You do have to be fit.
Yes.
But it's more mentally fit than anything.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. You can't. You've got to be in good shape. You got to be strong. You've got to have, you have to be right in your running too. You can't be inconsistent. You got to have it all there. I mean, I'm doing mobility 3-4 days a week. I'm stretching every day. Like, I take this very serious. I take this again, like I was a former college athlete. I take this very serious.
Right.
Like, I'm watching game film, like I'm, stretching, I'm lifting. Like, I just take it like I'm a professional athlete. I look at it that way because I think that's how you should look at any endeavor that you do. You should look at it. And I didn't always look at things that way, but now that I've been consistent and I've worked really hard in my life, I feel like, man, I do really well when I take it very serious. You know what I mean?
How you do anything is how you do everything.
There you go. That's a great way to look at it. And this carries over into being a dad. This carries over into being a husband. I'm not saying I'm perfect in all areas at all, but it's really helping me in all these areas have that balance that I need. Right. Here's the thing too. We live in this culture today where balance is not very, very prevalent. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who are into the grind. You know what I mean? And that's not me. That's not who I am. I'm not a grind guy. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm out there grinding when it comes to my workouts. I'm working really hard, but I'm also keeping balance for my family. I'm keeping balance for my work. I'm building a couple businesses right now. I have friendships. I have mentorships. I have coaches. There's a lot of things going on in my life. It's not just about me. It's about helping others too and making an impact on this world and the people around me where I can. So I don't look at things just for myself. I don't run. I don't lift. I don't do all these things just for myself. This is for the other people around me too. Does it help me because of that? Absolutely. Yeah, right. Of course. But I don't think having the mindset of, oh, this is all about me and what I can do for myself, like, that's just not who I am. Right. There is other guys that do that, and that's okay. And that's an ego trip, but I've had the ego trip in the past and did everything to serve myself, and it just wasn't fulfilling in my life.
I think looking at it from the perspective of like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like, I feel like a lot of people are so afraid to be kind of selfish and like work on themselves and make themselves better because they're trying to be selfless.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, if you can't help yourself, like if you're not, in a good spot in your own life, like, how are you going to help somebody else?
Correct.
So, like, you have to do these selfish things that while they're selfish, we know they're truly not selfish because you're inspiring people around you. You're making a much greater impact than just your personal fitness.
Exactly. And I'm leading from the front through that.
Yeah.
So
what is your take on leading from the front? I've heard you mention it a few times. I know it's a Jocko thing, right? Is that where it comes from?
Kinda. I mean,
like military, maybe.
It's kind of a mix. I mean, for me, it's like, the leaders go first. You know what I mean? The guy who's out front is leading the way and leading by example, and that's just, I think that's a good representation of what we need to be. For me, especially, like, I look at myself as a husband first and a father. Like, if I'm out there just talking and not actually doing, like, I'm just a talking head, basically. I'm not actually leading by example. Whereas, and I think you look at the corporate world, I've worked with a lot of corporate clients over the years in my marketing. There's a lot of people talking about doing cool stuff and doing all this crazy stuff and leading people, by telling them to do certain things, but then they're not even doing and following through with those things themselves, or even have good habits, or things like that themselves. So when I see that kind of leader, and that's who I used to be, so I can say that from my own point of view, like that's who I used to be. That was not a good leader. My wife didn't respond to that. My kids didn't respond to that. The people around me don't respond to that. So when I turned this around and I took ownership over who I was first and started to do the work myself and lead from the front myself, and obviously ask God for the strength and endurance to go through that. He's my guide. That's when really good things started happening in my life.
Yeah.
And my wife responded well, my kids are responding well to that. Now life is chaos. Don't get me wrong. I don't live this perfect life where everything's happy go lucky and stuff, like I'll be real here, but there's been a good response, and I can see that and I can feel that, and that's a great feeling. That's, to me, every day I wake up excited about my day for the most part, because I know I'm putting in the work and doing the things I need to do, and not just demanding my wife and kids to do something I'm not doing. And I think we look at that as leaders, like that's true leadership, right?
Actions will always speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Like the most influential people in my life weren't the ones that were telling me I should do this, telling me I should do that, but more so they're just out doing it. And then in turn, I'm like, oh, I can see it working. Like I can see them being successful and like being happy and whatnot, and following in their steps, rather than having somebody just tell me like, hey, you need to do this, you got to do that.
They're raising the standard. You know what I mean? That's a standard. They're they're raising that standard, and then they're saying, hey, they're grabbing you by the hand and they're pulling you up and saying, let's go. You got to do this too. Yeah. They're not making you do it. They're not demanding you to do it. They're just putting their hand out there for you and saying, hey, here's your opportunity to do the same thing. So that's what leading from the front is. And I think that's the best way to lead, and leadership. I truly believe leadership is having real leadership fixes a lot of problems in our lives in all areas. I mean, so we could get really deep on that when it comes to our country, our politics, those kinds of things as well. So it's a mess. And a lot of it boils down to, and that's where the Jocko side does come in, the leadership, he talks about leadership is the solution. And I truly believe it is. And it's even biblical, it even talks a lot about that in the Bible, leadership. So it's just really cool.
All right, man. Well, let's bring this back to the 100 miler. I want to, because I think where we left off was like, we went on a crazy tangent there.
Yeah, we did. That's good.
Bringing it back to like, you're doing the 5 workouts a week. You started getting into jiu-jitsu, just finding all these different things to make yourself better and keep stacking all these good habits.
You start stacking those habits, man. It's awesome.
And then how did you mentioned the 5K in there. So then when was the like, was it right after the 5K? You were like, okay, I got to run 100 miles, or like, I really want to learn. I want to learn.
Yeah.
Learn about this whole 100-mile experience, because I've yet to do 100, and I'm just so curious on what that whole experience is like.
Yeah, man. So just to give a little bit more background to kind of my story, like I ended up hiring a coach for my nutrition side, and that whole health journey took about a year. It wasn't till March or April of 2022 where I really started to like immerse myself into running more. Or was that even a point where I felt like, man, I could run a little bit and like use that as my cardio too, instead of just always jujitsu. So that was kind of the lead up to that. And then we were looking ahead to like traveling to go see my family in Minnesota at the end of July, early August. I was like, oh, there's the 5Ks going on. Like, I've never done the 5K. Let's go do the Raider Run 5K, And so that's when I started like getting serious about training for that. I didn't have a coach. I'm just like running, going for runs. So I went and did that, and I felt like, man, I felt like I did good. Like, this is cool. Like, I mean, come on, small town, 400 people. I mean, it's a kind of a joke, but
it's a good win though. It's like gives you some confidence.
It was a win. It gave me some confidence, and it was like, it showed me my capabilities a little bit, or showed me the opportunity for capability that I do have, or potential I do have.
Right.
My mom is a runner too. Actually, she really loves running, and she's been a runner. She's done, I think, several halves and several marathons over the years. Like, not fast or anything.
Leading by example.
So I remember, like, and we have very similar bodies. She's got long legs like I do. Like we're built very similar.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm kind of built like my mom, and she's tall too for a woman. And I was like, maybe this running thing is something for me. You know what I mean? So anyway, like, yeah, I remember coming back from that, and Ryan and I were talking, Ryan Callan and I were talking, and I was like, man, I'm really thinking about doing something super crazy, you know, like, and the background on that honestly is, so Cam Haynes, obviously, you know who Cam is.
Yep.
He's gotten pretty big over the last few
Of
years,
course.
you know, and stuff. So he's pretty influential. I've known Cam for 16 years now. He was one of my clients in the past, one of my marketing clients. I've helped him with different
nice.
things when I was starting my business.
How'd you initially get connected with him?
So my uncle actually, and his best friend from back home, started a supplement company that's still in the hunting space. It's a hunting industry specific supplement company. So when I was going to college, I was going to tech school for 2 years before I went to 4-year school. When I was going to tech school,
what's the name of that supplement company? I think he just had him on his podcast, didn't he?
So this one wasn't Mountain Ops is who he worked with, but Wilderness Athlete is the name of the supplement company.
Okay. He had somebody. It was like a local guy to Eugene. I can't remember his name. He was on his podcast a couple weeks ago.
I wonder who it was.
He started a gym. I think it's like the guy that trains Cam. I cannot remember his name.
Oh, it might have been. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
It's like Outlaw Strength.
Yeah, Outlaw Strength. Yeah. Gosh, I can't think of what his name is right now. I've met him. McCormick. Eric McCormick.
Yeah.
So Eric works for Mountain Ops. Which is also a hunting industry supplement company. So they're pretty well known, which I know the owners very well, and I'm connected with them. They were like the second hunting industry specific supplement company behind my uncle and his best friend Mark's company, which they ended up selling, and it's still around. It's still out there, which is really cool. So I was like at the start of that company, I was pick, pack, ship, you know, doing social media, doing like that, because that was my skills. Like this is 2007, 2008.
Oh, dang.
And, you know, this is a while back now, but that was just getting started. Social media was really just getting started. I built websites, I did graphics, I did a lot of that kind of stuff. So I helped with a lot of that. I helped with a lot of like just internal stuff like pick, pack, and ship. Yeah. But then I was also reaching out to the influencers or the people we were like partnered up with, like our athletes. And Cam was one of our athletes at that point. So I started to, I think I called him a couple times to send him product or get his address or something like that. And I had to send him out some product. And I think we just chatted a couple times. But I knew who he was because I started to immerse myself in the hunting space, and he wrote a lot of articles.
Yeah.
This was before social media was big. So Cam wasn't even on social media. Nobody knew who Cam was like they do now.
Right.
But I started to read his articles in Bowhunter magazine. I started to see his articles in different other magazines. I think there was a few YouTube videos out there maybe at that time, or some different content, maybe hunting. That was the hunting channel. Yeah. They had some different stuff. So we only had the hunting channel back then. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the outdoor channel. So there wasn't a lot of stuff out there, but you started to see guys who were making a name for themselves. And for me, Cam was one of those guys because I was an athlete, you know, that at heart, that's who I was. And when I see a guy who talks about in his articles, like training like a pro for bow hunting, and that was Cam's thing. Like I'm training for bow hunting, like I'm going to be a professional bow hunter. Like this is an athletic endeavor for me. So I always thought, it's like, man, that's really cool. Like he's bleeding for this. He's working hard. He's running, he's shooting, he's lifting, he's doing all these things, which he wasn't doing it to the degree he is now. Back then, but he was starting to build that foundation and talk a lot about that kind of stuff. He was doing a little bit of endurance running back then as well. So
he's another one of those guys that's just like crazy consistent. Like, you know, that's something I've started to really learn. Like you kind of hit on it, but like all these like really high level successful people, they didn't have an overnight success.
No.
They didn't have like one thing that just set them off.
No.
It was just like the relentless pursuit of just getting better
every day. The routine, man.
Yeah,
having those good habits and consistency, man. And again, I'll give a lot of credit to Cam. Like we talked a little bit, you know, and I knew each other. We'd see each other at all the shows and stuff like that, the trade shows and stuff. And I built a relationship with him through that. And then obviously he was my client. So we were working on different projects and stuff through starting to build his social media. I helped him design shirts. I did some website work for him.
Nice.
But
he's such a genuine dude.
He always has been a really, really great guy. I mean, I always was really impressed with the way he showed up. he was actually a lot more soft spoken and quiet back
He
then.
really is.
Which is kind of
Yeah.
crazy to think about because he's very out there now. But obviously, when you build a platform and you're an influencer on social media, you have to that changes over time. That confidence comes, and you have a platform. But I look at Cam as a mentor from afar for sure because back then I was thinking, man, I want to be like this guy. Like this guy's a stud. Like this guy's getting after it in life. I want to be, and obviously I didn't do that in my 20s. I went the opposite way and I was more focused on business and got immersed in business and stuff like that, which I worked hard in business, but I didn't work as hard in the athletic endeavors like I should have. So I remember just seeing Cam and thinking, man, this guy he's really getting after it. I mean, I think I could do that. I think I could maybe run 100 miles or I could, really become something greater, when it comes to my athletic side. I have some skills and talent that God has given me, obviously, So honestly, I remember thinking about that too, like during that time period when I was thinking about maybe running 100 miles. Like I've always had this in the back of my head that eventually maybe I will run 100 miles. Because ultimately for me, Jeremy, is like, I'm a bow hunter too, like Cam is, that's what's so cool. Like, all these things actually are going to help me go to the mountains to hunt elk with my bow and arrow. So like, if you think about that, like, cool, like let's do everything we can in that sense to be the best version of ourselves for that aspect as well. Not just our, our family, friends, that stuff, but even as a bow hunter.
I feel like he has what partially makes him so great is like he has a little bit different perspective on hunting in general. Like when I grew up, or when I was growing up, most people like, oh, you drive your 4-wheeler out, you take your truck out, like you take a case of beer with you, you just go and like sit in a tree stand or just hang out and wait for the animal to walk right in front of you. Now with Cam, I feel like he's started this whole movement of like being an athlete, going to where the animals are, going out and hiking and running in the mountains and not getting drunk and just sitting on your ass all day. You're going out to hunt and like it's a whole adventure.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle, right? And Cam took a lot of heat early on. I mean, he was writing articles about these things. Him do-it-yourself. He was known as a do-it-yourself backcountry hunter. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, because I can look at as a hunter my whole life and growing up and hunting, like, cool. If you want to be the guy who's going to go out to the woods and sit in a stand and just sit there and be patient and maybe have a couple beers in camp and do your thing, that's cool. There's families and traditions that are built around that in hunting. And it's cool. Now I know what you're talking about, like the redneck hunter, like that's, it's like, geez, like that's honestly, it's very few of the hunters really are that way anymore. I think that has changed quite a bit because of like what you're saying, Cam's perspective. And I think just the idea of conservation and, how you show up as a hunter, like, now we've got anti-hunters and we've got all these people who are like fighting against our rights for hunting and guns and those kinds of things. But Cam has always been that guy who's like, I was super impressed because I grew up in Minnesota where you only hunt a couple weekends of the year for deer hunting and we don't have elk. We don't have like, you just go sit in a stand and you're in hunting camp. And it was great. Like I love those. I miss those times. That's why I've started high caliber hunts for hunting camps now because of that. But at my heart, it's like the adventure, the athlete, that kind of hunting is where I really want to be. And when I was 290 plus pounds, there was no way I was going to be able to invest time, money, energy, effort into going out west to do a hunt. I mean, I would have fell flat on my face and been a waste of time and money. It's not cheap to go out and do those hunts. You know what I mean? I drew a tag for Montana this year for a bow hunt in Montana for elk. Nice. That's a $1,200 tag, man. Like I'm paying $1,200. That's just my cost for my tag that I luckily got drawn for. And now I have to go out there, scout. I got to train for it. And obviously now my lifestyle builds into this because I'm training naturally for all these different events anyway. So I'm going to be ready, but then you go out there and do the hunt. So, but I do have to give a lot of credit kind of coming back like to Cam and thinking like, man, this guy's a stud. Like he's really getting after it. And I think that's a really cool thing. And that was part of I would say that was part of my reason for wanting to eventually do 100 miles. Cause, there was very few guys known in the hunting space, that were, endurance style athletes that were, doing it for hunting, that were hunters, but also doing these events.
That's a cool thing with him. We'll just keep riffing off Cam Hanes, but like he always says he's a hunter, like he's not a runner.
Yeah,
like, he runs.
He's a bow hunter
in order to hunt.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a cool take on it.
And obviously that's his thing. He's coined that, and I will play off of that. Like I feel like my family and what I'm doing for them is a big part of that, but also being a bow hunter. And my wife knows that's one of my biggest passions in life is being a bow hunter as well. Because there's a lot of value there. I'm providing for my family, food, the adventure. That's where I mean, I'm out in the woods, like spending time in nature with God, with friends, with family. There's just a lot of really cool experiences that a lot of people don't even realize.
I think that self-sufficiency. I've never historically been a runner or not. A hunter, and I really want to get into it for that thing right there is like just the self-sufficiency aspect of like being able to go get your own meat, like exactly where it's coming from. It's it's such a more like natural and I think more like primal, I guess, way of just doing it. It's obviously way better for the environment and everything else involved, like
100%.
The conservation aspect, like you touched on. Like I don't know, you're making me want to go out and hunt right now.
Well, we'll get you out, man. I'm headed to my hunt lease after this podcast. I'm taking a couple of my buddies from back home out for a couple days for pigs, so we'll have to line it up. We'll get you out there. We'll get you on the crossbow.
There we go.
And we'll.
Is that what you guys used to get the?
Well,
pigs?
A lot of new hunters, I'll take them with the crossbow first, just because it's a good starting point for them. But we'll eventually get you into that bow. And
do you do archery for the pigs out here too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm an archery hunter through and through. Like solely pretty much archery. Dang. Yeah, just because that's my passion, man. Yeah. Like I own guns and I obviously hunt. I will hunt with a rifle at times, but I haven't really hunted with a rifle for years, man. It's all bow hunting for me because of the challenge, and the closeness. Like you're getting super close. Like there's the other side of it too. There's like the equipment side. Like this as a runner, like new shoes, new equipment, new different things, like new supplements. Like there's that side to hunting as well, which is really cool. So you're testing out your gear. You got new arrows. You got a new bow. You got new sight. You got all these little integral things that are part of your equipment, which is a lot of fun too. Like you can really immerse yourself into that, which is sweet. But yeah, man, I do have to say though, there's another guy too that was actually a really big influence on that, and he was one of Cam's mentors, and it was a guy named Dwight Shue. So Dwight was one of the editors of Bowhunter magazine. So Cam wrote for Dwight. Because he was the editor. And Dwight was a guy I met early on in the industry as well, because I remember reading his articles in Bowhunter magazine thinking, man, this guy's a stud. Like I think at that point he was maybe in his late 50s, early 60s, and he was running Ironman. He was doing Ironmans. Oh, nice. He was running ultras, and then he was also bow hunting and doing a really good job in the woods when it comes to
gosh, these dogs, man.
It's all good, man. It's all good. It's all right. He was really immersing himself in the hunting aspect as well. Right. So like what Cam is doing now, but before social media and stuff. This guy wasn't on social media. This guy was known as a legend before social media. Yeah. So
those are the real legends.
He was an OG, man. Yeah. Like he literally was. But what's really cool is he kind of became like, I met him at a couple shows, shook his hand, had some great conversation with him, and just he really took time and spent time with me and said, that you can do great things in your life if you put your mind to it, if you put the work in, and then you trust God to help you through that. Yeah. He was a man of faith as well. So I always connected with that. And I just remember him, seeing me at the shows every couple of years, and we'd talk and chat. I actually have a picture with him as well too, because I took a picture with him one year. He ended up dying of cancer. Oh, no. So, but I always thought in my head, like, man, someday I'm going to run 100 miles and I'm going to dedicate that to Dwight, because he was an inspiration to me. Well, come to find out, I didn't even realize this in the moment. I'm connected with one of Dwight's best friends was a gentleman. I don't even know his name, but his daughter, I helped at a youth group in Bozeman when I lived out in Bozeman, Montana, and Summer is her name. Shout out to Summer. Me and Summer got to know each other through that, being helpers at that youth group. And Summer's dad was best friends with Dwight, and they would run ultras and they would run some of these Ironmans and stuff together. So anyway, Summer like messaged me during Rocky Raccoon. Like I'm running and I'm checking my Insta, because I kind of updated people as I was running and stuff. She's like, hey, I don't know if you realize this, because she knows I had this relationship with Dwight. Mm-hmm. She's like, Dwight passed away on the day you're going to finish your 100. Like that was the day he passed away. I was like, I got goosebumps just then. I was like, oh my gosh, like he's here, he's with me. Like, this is amazing, So I had dedicated, like in my mind, I was thinking about him during this run, but she messaged me out of the blue. It was like, I don't know if you realize. I'm like, what the heck? That's so crazy. So I ended up finishing Rocky Raccoon the same day that Dwight had passed away 5 years earlier.
Dang.
So, which is kind of a cool story. But
That's crazy, man.
but those guys were, obviously Cam and Dwight were very influential on me to wanting to end up running or doing some kind of ultra endurance. And I was like, in my head, I was thinking, everybody's telling me like, oh, just do a marathon or do this or do a 10K and then work your way up. And I'm just thinking, well, you're going to do all those things along the way training anyway, right? Like, I don't know, maybe most guys won't think that way, but I do.
I love that.
And also the other part of it too, is I started running, I realized that I don't really like the road running quite as much. I like the trail running.
Yeah.
Obviously you have to do some road running as part of your training, and there's only so many times you can run certain trails all the time, but I realized in that moment, like, I think the road running isn't as much, it, beats your legs down. I just remember being a lot more sore in my training because of the road running and stuff. And also thinking like the trail running ultimately is like what's going to level me up for the mountains as well.
Right.
Cause eventually my goal is to get out west and do Leadville and do, Cocodona and do some of these.
You want to do the 250?
Oh, dude. Good, buddy.
Okay, we're good.
I mean, absolutely, man. Moab is on my list. Cocodona, like I want to do some big 200, mile races. And not that I'm gonna finish them super fast, but like I want to do that mental battle and go through it, and the preparation. And like I think I mentioned to you, like baseball was one of my favorite sports, and I really like baseball because it's a strategy sport, and I like the strategy of these races too. Like
there's so much that goes into it.
Oh, there people I never realized until I started training, like, man, like your food, your nutrition, your like timing on everything, like your pace, like your uphill, your downhill, like your shoes, like your clothes. You're like, man, it gets so deep. But I thrive in that. Like I love that aspect of things. Right. I think that comes from being a hunter and an outdoorsman as well. And like just that survival, that's that really, primal feel, you know what I mean?
Dude, that's what ultras are. It's like it's a survival kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like it's not, I mean, I've done some trail runs and trail races and stuff, but more road running, and it's just it's an entirely different sport.
Right?
Like they're both running obviously, but I don't even consider them the same sport.
Yeah.
Like they're entirely different for so many reasons.
Well, and ultra running has become so big now because of that aspect, the other side of it, where it's like, man, you don't have to be a certain size, a certain person, a certain way. Like you can go run. I mean, in both sides there is, but like trail runners they're dedicated to trail runners. Road runners are dedicated to their road running. You know what I mean?
So when you go to like a 100-mile race, people don't necessarily look like athletes.
No,
like they're just like everyday people.
I know.
And that's the cool thing about it, is it's like it gives you a lot of confidence too, because you're like, you don't have to be some elite athlete to go out and run 100 miles. Like as long as you're physically capable of moving your body. Like, at a certain point, I'm sure we can go deeper into this. Like you reach a point where it is 100% mental. Like your body is so far past like, what you thought was capable. But at that point it just becomes just a mental battle.
Yeah, a mental battle. And a preparation. Are you prepared? Are you prepared to, to get through those different periods of time? But yeah, man, there's a lot to unpack in that, because man, running 100 miles it's tough. It really is tough. And yes, I think truly anybody, if they put their mind to it, can do it if they really want to. Now, most people obviously don't do that and don't put their mind to it and don't do the training, don't do the work. Yeah. But when you do, like, it's so awesome. And I'm so like, that's who I am. I'm a trail runner, and that's where, these big races, like I think ahead, like, man, at some point I'm going to do some of these big races, and I want to do them because I want to get back out to the mountains. I want to use that as preparation for big bow hunts and stuff like that. I want to immerse. And my wife naturally is a runner. She enjoys running.
Nice.
She hasn't done any big races, but she's getting back into it now because she's following my lead, and she's like, oh, I want to get into this too. So she's paced me for both of my ultras.
Oh, that's awesome.
She paced me. She did 20 miles with me at Rocky Raccoon. She had never ran over a half marathon before that.
Wow.
So through the night, 2:00 in the morning to 6 or 7 a.m., she's just chugging along with me. We're getting after it,
That's amazing.
And it was awesome. In that, doing that with your wife, man, it's freaking awesome. Like that bonding experience, time to talk, time to just clear your head together and push hard, like struggle together in that moment too. Like
you have that mutual struggle. I feel like there's no better way to bond with anybody.
Dude, Exactly, with anybody. It's awesome, man. That's what brings us together, right? But yeah, so that's been really cool. And then a month later, I did a 100K as well. So she came out and paced
Oh my
me.
gosh.
I
Which
think
one was that?
it was it was one out here in Texas. What was it called? The Crazy Desert Trail
Oh,
100K.
okay. Oh, I remember seeing pictures of that.
San Angelo, Texas.
Okay, yeah.
And that was hot, man. I had
Is
like
that like
sunburns.
West Texas or where's that at?
Yeah, it was a couple hours from. It was about 3 hours from San Antonio.
Okay.
It was like a West Texas desert style race where there was a lot of exposure. It wasn't a lot of cover. I got some good sunburns.
Was that, how did that compare to Rocky Raccoon? Because those are probably very different courses, right? I know
Yeah.
it's different distance too, but
Yeah, I would say that if it would have been 100 miles, it would have been a harder race than Rocky Raccoon just because of the exposure to the sun. It was hotter, obviously. It was a month later after we could.
dude, you're killing me. I don't mind it being in here, but when they're like bumping the cameras, I'm like, dude, come on. I know you're so excited to see us. Okay, please lay down. I'll cut some of this out.
Yeah, it's all good.
Please lay down. Take a nap.
Good boy.
There you go.
Good boy.
There you go. Lay down. Lay down. He just has to be touched all the time.
He's like a child.
Dude,
love it. No, but what I was saying is definitely I would say that that race would have been probably tougher if it was 100 miles just because the exposure. There was a lot more elevation gain, of course, as well. It was a great, well put together race though, man. I'm actually looking forward to going back to do that one. I don't know if I'll do 100K next year. I'll probably do the 50 because I think my wife wants to run that one. So I'll probably sign up just to run it with her and stick with her the whole time.
I'm sure after doing the 100 miler and then a month later going into the 100K, you're probably like, oh, I just did 100 miles. Like, what's 62? This is nothing. Did you kind of have that confidence going into it? Like, where you like had no doubts?
For sure. Like, I definitely knew like I'm going to do a lot better at this one. Now it was a pretty quick turnaround, honestly. Right. So I was a little nervous about that. Cause the week after Rocky Raccoon, I think I got like 3 miles in, you know what I mean? I did like a couple I did like one shakeout run, I'm pretty sore after that. And then the next week I did like, maybe 15 miles. And then I did like a 30-mile week. And then you're back down to tapering already before you hit that. But, you've built up that base already, obviously, over the 5 months of training before that. So I was confident, but I'm like, what's this going to be like? You know what I mean? Is it going to be a walk in the park? Is it going to be tough? I also had a goal. Like my goal for me was like to finish it in under 15 hours. So I had that in the back of my head as well. It's like, I want to run this a little bit faster than I did Rocky Raccoon. Rocky Raccoon, I ended up getting the flu the day before.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So that was also that actually was a really cool part about running the 100K was like, I didn't have the flu. Yeah. Like, this is what it's like to run without the flu. Like, this is great.
Dude, I'm sure you just felt like shit. Like,
dude, it was nuts. Like, I easily wanted to quit 100 times in the first 30, 40 miles. You know what I mean? Yeah. Luckily, the momentum, your adrenaline is kicking in. Everybody, you're closer together, obviously, in the start of a race, So that really helped me a lot. But I literally got maybe 1 hour of sleep the night before that race because I was up every hour for 10, 20 minutes, like just puking and, going to the bathroom. And like, it was horrible, like all through the night. And I had been taking, all the stuff to try to stop that. And Tyler, my buddy's like, he's just snoring away over in the bed in the hotel next to me. And he doesn't even, in the room next to me. And he doesn't even realize what's going on. And I'm getting up. I'm like, all right, 4 a.m. I guess it's time to start getting ready for this thing.
Time to run 100 miles.
Time to run 100 miles. I mean, what do you do? I was just like, screw it. Let's go. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to quit. I'm not a quitter. Like I've just trained, for 5 months to do this thing. I was like, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? So luckily at that point, like, I took some Imodium and I shoved like 3 of those things down. I was like, all right, hopefully this holds up. You know what I mean? But that first 30 miles was a struggle. I was on the struggle bus. I mean, I think I remember posting just being happy-go-lucky because you don't want to show how tough it is in that moment. Mm-hmm. But in my head, I wanted to quit so many times. But it's like, just keep going. Just keep rolling, man. Just one foot after the other. It's only going to get better.
What was your longest training run before the 100?
My longest training run, I did several 30-mile runs, Saturday long runs. So I think there was a period in there where I did, 5 or 6 weeks in a row where I did marathons and 30-mile runs. So, but still you think about it, like going from 30 miles to 100 miles, it's like, whoa, man, like I guess it prepares your body, you know.
Right.
But we trained pretty hard, man. Ryan had me on a pretty good, you know, schedule.
Sounds like it.
He I don't know if you realize this, but his mentor was Michael McKnight.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
just had him on a few weeks ago.
which is really cool. So that's kind of I like to call it my lineage. You know what I mean? And I've been following Mike because of Ryan too, and I love seeing what Mike is doing. Mike's a totally different person than I am because, you know, he's a fat adapted runner and he's a lot different. But
do you do the keto stuff?
I don't right now, but I'm actually working towards getting closer and closer to doing some of that just to try and see how that works for me.
Yeah.
Because even for like backcountry hunting, being fat adapted actually is a really good thing because it's less weight and less, you know, food you have to take in with you.
It's crazy how many similarities there are to this like backcountry bow hunting and ultra running. It makes perfect sense. I mean, that's why you do both of them.
Exactly. And that it's cool how they work together. Yeah. That's the amazing part of it about it. So, you know, you're training for those runs and it's just going to only help you in the mountains. Right. So, which is really cool. But no, I don't do that right now, but I'm working towards that more and more. But it's really cool to like have this lineage. Like you got this guy like Michael McKnight, who's just the king of 200. You know, this guy's a beast. Like he just won Cocodona, like came back and just killed it.
He was in like 73rd place and just freaking won the whole thing.
Oh, man, it was so fun to watch that too. And just, I've never met Mike, but just knowing who he is through Ryan and like messaging back and forth on Instagram a little bit and stuff, like what a solid dude. So Ryan has learned a lot about training and how to prepare and stuff, obviously from Mike. So I was like, man, I have a lot of confidence here because of that. So we, you know, we did some hard weeks for sure. You know, there's a lot of 70, 80 mile weeks there where, you know, you're running back to backs, 30 miles one day and then a half marathon the next day. So, you know, you're 15 miles the next day, you know, so you're doing 40 miles, 50 miles in 2 days. And that preps your body and really gets
you. Did you have any injuries? Cause like, I mean, if you went from basically never running at all, like, you know, a 5K to 80 mile weeks, like I would imagine like that's a lot for your body to handle.
It was a slow gradual, I'll be honest. It was a slow gradual climb. And then, you know, you hit your peak towards the middle 3/4 area. And then you kind of work your way back down in there a little bit. But, I didn't take my stretching and my mobility as serious in the start because I'm not a runner. You know what I mean? I didn't realize like how important that stuff was, even though Ryan is telling me, dude, you got to stretch, you got to do your mobility, you got to warm up the right way.
Were you still strength training throughout all this?
I was strength training throughout all of it. So that did help me. You know, I was strong, but as you know, when you start going too many miles too quick, especially road running, you know, it takes a toll on your body. So I had a lot of IT band issues for a little while there. Really the IT band issue is what I had, but that took me out there I was like, man, what's going on? I didn't even know what an IT band issue was for a long time. I'm like, Ryan, hey, I got this issue going on. My knee's like hurting. It feels like it's going to fall off.
Oh my
He's
gosh.
Like, oh, you got an IT band. You need to start stretching. Are you doing the stretching and the mobility I told you to do?
Yeah. Is that what fixed it? Was just more?
Dude, literally within 2 days, it was back to normal. Like just doing mobility and stretching the right way, doing the proper stuff, you know? So
and one thing I found too with any kind of running injury, one, most of it stems from just like overuse typically, like your body's just not quite ready for that volume, or like some sort of deficiency or like inefficiency in like your stride or like a muscle weakness or something like that. And typically I feel like with IT band stuff, it's usually like your glutes or your hamstrings or something in that area, like up around your hip.
Correct.
And then it pulls and you're like, is my knee broken or something?
I know. It's the weirdest thing. Like I'm not a runner, so I had no clue what was going on. I'm like, did I blow my knee out or something? Yeah. Like I played college football and had so many hits to my legs. Like I never felt this before. You know what I mean?
This soft running is making killing my knees.
What a wuss. You know, that's what you're thinking in your head. And then, you know, the pride is kind of coming. It's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm going to be okay. Yeah. You try to run 1 mile and it's like, oh my God, I can't move. You know, like walking and limping. But he's like, dude, just get serious about your mobility. Right. Take it serious. Like you have the mentality to do this. Like, so I started doing every morning, 15 minutes of mobility. And then obviously all my stretching.
What kind of mobility work are we talking about?
So I follow a guy called Strength Side. I don't know if you ever seen his stuff on YouTube. He's got like a 15-minute follow through on there or a follow along. And I follow a lot of his stuff. It's free. Like it's on his YouTube channel.
That's all you need.
Yeah, it's perfect. Like it was amazing. And then I found a couple guys on YouTube that do like specific for IT band issue stuff. Oh, nice. So I started following some of their stuff and then foam rolling, obviously, and just your regular stretching. And then obviously really kicking up and focusing on making sure my lifts were solid and good form and stuff like that. That really helped. And I think for me, it was probably my glutes. It was probably, some of that kind of stuff. Like you were saying, once I strengthened that back up, literally within a couple of days, like the pain went away. That's cool. And I haven't had an issue since. And I'm running some hard miles. You know what I mean?
Dude, I found the other thing with running injuries, it reminds me of like chicken pox almost, where it's like you get shin splints one time. Once you get through it, you figure out the fix for it, then you never get it again. Yep. At least in my experience. Yep. Like, because I had plantar fasciitis and shin splints and IT band problems at one point. And it's like once you get through them, I feel like your body just adapts. Like it's just got to get it out. Yep. And then typically it kind of stays away. In my experience, at least.
Well, thank God that's what happened for me. Is like, all right, lesson learned. All right, follow through, do your stretching, do your mobility, take this serious. And so yeah, I mean, I just, again, be a professional, follow through, do that. So I take that very serious now. And my schedule, we were talking about how am I training for, for the last man standing, it's changed a little bit because I've got to get that elevation. So for me, I'm doing a 40-pound ruck pack a couple days a week where I'm doing like 1,200 foot of elevation gain. And
you're doing that now?
Yeah, now
Did you do any of this for the 100 or this?
No, I didn't do any of that for the 100 just because there was no elevation. I mean, barely. I think over that period of 100 miles, like maybe 5,000 foot elevation gain or something. So
you can find some hills in San Antonio for that though.
Dude, there's a hill literally 5 miles from my house. Luckily. We are in the hill country, so there is hills for sure. But luckily I found this hill 5 miles from my house. It's like straight up and straight down. And I think it's 400 foot of elevation gain over 1 mile. So I was like, perfect. Yeah. Well, and I was like, well, what I'll do is I don't really have a coach for this one. I'm kind of doing it myself. And I was like, I'm going to do a 40-pound ruck pack or ruck vest and just do that, a couple days a week. And man, it's feeling amazing. Like I feel really good. I think I'm doing 4 miles each time, and which is like 12 to 1,400 foot of elevation gain. But I'm feeling really good. And I'm trying to keep it, because for that race, it only has to be under 20 minutes, every mile. So it's like, I'm pushing myself to that limit as far as I can go, but it's also like, man, once I take that ruck off, and I'm losing weight right now too, I'm getting back down. I bulked actually during the winter. Nice. I bulked up a little bit, put on some muscle because I knew that I need to get my muscle, especially my legs and my arms back for these mountain type races, these elevation style races and for hunting. So
do you find that the like training for your 100-miler, that was more impactful, or that's where like the growth happened as opposed to actually running the 100 miles?
Oh, 100%. Like it was like a shock almost. Cause you're going from not ever training like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I trained hard for college football, but not like I did for 100 miles. And the consistency that I had was there 100% too. What my coach told me to do, I did it and I followed through. And he even said, man, I'm so proud of you because you actually followed through on everything I told you to do, other than the mobility at the start. Yeah. But once I got that down, I did it, So yeah, I was so confident going into it at the end because it was like I put in the work and I knew I put in the work. Mm-hmm. And everybody around me knew I put in the work because I'm pretty outward on social about my training and about what I do. Like it's me against me. I'm not I'm not going against anybody. I don't look at it as going against anybody else. This is me against me and proving to myself what I can do. So, I put in the work, and through that work, man, that growth, that you're leveling up each step of the way. It's amazing.
Yeah, I find that 100% of the time. Like with training for a marathon, whatever distance it is, like any kind of event, like all the growth for me happens during the training, like the consistency when nobody's watching. More importantly, is like, what is that saying? Like, who are you when nobody's looking? Yep. It's like that's where you learn the most about yourself. Is like when it's in the middle of January and it's like cold outside. You don't want to go outside. It's dark out, and you got to get up at 4 a.m. and go run or whatever. Like that's gonna be way more impactful than like going out and running a race when you've got all these people cheering you on and you're out there, you're filming yourself. Like that's I don't know. That's where all the growth is for me. So it's interesting to hear that for you.
Well, getting back to what we were talking about with the Muskogee, that's the whole idea of a Muskogee is like, you're not talking about it really. You're not, you're just doing it because you have this goal to accomplish something really big and you have to put in the work when nobody's looking, nobody's watching, nobody's cheering you on. And what a cool example for life that is, because there's a lot of times in life, like nobody's telling me what to do. Nobody's making me do anything, really, it's, if I want to put in the work and I want to put in the effort and the energy, like, I'll do it. And
You have to hold yourself accountable.
you have to hold yourself accountable. Now, is there value in bringing those right people around you? 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we've talked about that a lot here already. I think we need more guys to have to hold each other accountable. We need more communities, more masterminds, and more coaching and stuff like that. I think that investment is huge. But who are you when nobody is watching? You know what I mean? And if you're not putting in the work, then don't waste your time on everything. You're just going to waste your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it just shows your true character and your integrity for everything else. That's why running, it's just the perfect metaphor for life.
It is.
Like, it's I'm sure hunting's the same exact way. It's like,
yeah, you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
No, I mean, September comes and all right, I'm in the mountains.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get up this thing.
Yeah.
If you're not going to get up it, it's going to be a tough 10 days of hunting, because you're going to be sweating. You're going to be tired.
Yeah.
You're going to go home empty handed. And you're going to be like, well, I just blew all my money. I wasted all my time. I didn't put in the work. I didn't put in the effort. And here we go. I got the reward for that. Right.
I feel like there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's kind of an analogy too between like the hunt. It's like, that's your race. Like, that's your 100-mile race. Or like, even when it comes down to the moment of like, you've got an animal right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, did you put in all your training? Did you shoot your bow every day? Did you do this work? It's like same thing when you show up on race day.
Yep.
Like, you're gonna find out real quickly if you put in all the training, if you did the work prior. Is it kind of the same?
100%. I mean, here's the thing. I put in the work, so I got the flu, right?
Yeah.
Even though I got the flu, man, you know what? I went out there and did it. I didn't make excuses about it. I went and did it. It was tough. It was hard, but I followed through and I had the confidence to do that. Honestly, I ran the second half. I ran the last 40 miles of that race better and faster than I did the first 60 miles,
Dang.
because I was feeling better. I'm like, man, I feel good now. This is awesome, and then my wife ran with me for 20 of those miles. And then the last 20, you're like, all right, I got 20 miles left. Let's go,
That's incredible.
So it's an awesome feeling.
Do you think you physically were in better shape, or like, do you think there's something in your brain that kind of flipped those last 40?
Yeah, right here, man. It was mental at that point.
Yeah.
I had put in enough work my body was there, you know what I mean? And I was taking enough Tylenol to get through. So
that definitely helps.
Yeah, there's a point there where it's like, all right, everything's off here. Like, you got to take a few Tylenol and just roll with it.
How long did the 100 end up taking you?
Took me 27 hours. Yeah. 20, right over 27. I was like 27, 28 or 20 or 30 or something, somewhere right around there.
Great.
But my goal was under 24. That was my hope. Obviously
I feel like just finishing the damn thing that's enough of an accomplishment.
Man, I as you know, I set big goals. I mean, I go from 5K to 100 miles. So I go from, 290 pounds to 190 pounds in a couple of years. I don't know, like, just something about setting those big goals, and it's not even about accomplishing them. I don't think it's like what we're just talking about. It's that work you do in there and how that builds you up. So even if I wouldn't have, finished that 100, even if I wouldn't have made 100, lost 100 pounds, I think that just that growth through there is what's going to keep me going moving forward.
What do you think was harder, losing 100 pounds or running 100 miles?
Losing 100 pounds.
That was harder.
For sure. Yeah, man. I was, you're at this point where you're so stuck in food. Like I was addicted to food in certain ways. My relationship with food wasn't good. You're depressed. You're just in a bad place mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So you're just in a really bad place I think when you're overweight. And I think that just is a reflection on our country as a whole. Like, we look around at the obesity thing that's going on, and where does a lot of these mental health issues come from? I think it has a lot to do with the food and in our size of our bodies and not working out, not spending time in the outdoors, those kinds of things. So I think it's a hard thing to get out of, you know what I mean? Because you're already down in the dumps. Nobody's on your team in that point. A lot of times you're around people who are already soft and are just saying, oh, you're fine. Your body's great. You look great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't. Because I looked in the mirror and
tough.
actually realized what I looked like, So I think that, honestly, I think it's harder to lose 100 pounds than it is to run 100 miles. But luckily for me, I kind of combined them both as, together, ended up losing that 100 pounds and then running 100 miles. And it's shot me into, a lot of great things in the future, and I'm a better person for it. I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. And hopefully I can make a big impact on the people around me through my story and my experience and what I've went through. So
do you feel like you still have that thing inside you that led you to be overweight and like kind of become lazy or, not be the person you are now? Do you have to like fight that every day, you think?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's just a natural thing inside of our body that we want to be complacent. We want to go the easy way. We want to take the easy route. Every day I have to fight that. I have to, every day it starts right away with that 4 a.m. wake up call. Do I hit the snooze button, or do I get up and take the shower and do my devotional and read my Bible and get into my morning routine? You know what I mean? What am I doing? And I can tell you, there's been times over the last few months that I have not followed through on my routine the right way. And it shows, in my life and my lifestyle throughout the day. Days are tougher. The relationships aren't as good, so it's like, oh, get back to it. You got to get back to it. So I'm working really hard. Like my routine has gotten better over the last week. Again, it's like, you lose a little bit of that. I don't know, not control is the right word, but you lose that battle for a couple weeks, and that just carries back into the inconsistency again. So it's like, all right, reset. It was a bad month. All right, a new month starts right now. Let's do a reset and start forward. And I even say that to my clients. Hey, don't let one bad day turn into 2 bad days. Don't let 2 bad days turn into a bad week. Right. Don't let that bad week turn into a bad month, because the next thing you know, the bad month has turned into a bad year. Yeah. So that inconsistency, is really consistency, just in the wrong way, right?
Yeah, I found like for a lot of people that I coach, I give them like, marathon programming and whatnot, but more so I've started to learn I'm more of like a mindset coach, like, because it's not this specific workout, this like pace that you're running. That's not what's going to get you to your goal. It's just the consistent effort that can the consistently showing up every single day on the days you don't want to, more importantly. And so like, I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest impact I try and have on people that I coach is like, there's a million other running coaches out there that can give you the same exact workouts that I am, but you have to have that mindset shift of like, okay, if I actually want to hit this goal, if I want to hit this PR, whatever it is, like, you have to just keep showing up every single day, putting in the work. And that's going to be way more impactful.
I feel exactly the same way. Yeah. Like, I'm not some special, fitness performance coach. Right. Like, I'm just a little bit ahead of these people, honestly, if you think about it. I've had some experience and stuff, and obviously accomplished some great things in a short period of time. So that gives me some credibility there. But I think where the difference comes for me, again, like what you're saying, is it's that mindset shift. And I know how to take that mindset inside of me and now bring that energy for my clients and the people around me. I know how to work that the right way with each person. And that really is what helps them get through to where they're accomplishing the things they want to accomplish. Yeah. So, which is so fulfilling. It's an amazing, I know you know that too. It's an amazing thing to see those people you're working with accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. And you help be part of that,
100%. So I want to talk a little bit about like your business and the high caliber stuff. Cause you have high caliber hunts.
Yep.
And what else is there? High caliber, like other branches of this?
Yeah. So this kind of goes back to 2020, actually, like 2021. Like, I kind of had this idea with me starting to bring mentors into my life and these masterminds and these different things. Like, I knew that there was something special about bringing other guys in your life to speak into your life. Mm-hmm. And also I had this passion for hunting, and growing up, we did hunting camps where as a family, we were in a hunting camp for the weekend, and we'd eat good food, have a campfire, and then go out hunting in the morning and the evenings, So it was like this immersive experience as a family. So I was like, man, how could I combine these two, like, to kind of work together? I kind of just had this idea for a while, been rolling around in my head. And I ended up, one of my contracts with one of my clients ended at the end of August of 2021. And I was like, man, I have a little bit more free time right now. I think I need to start, because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've had a couple businesses. I've sold a couple businesses and did well with those in my 20s. So I always have had this entrepreneurial mind. I haven't really worked for many people over the years.
What were those businesses?
So I had a marketing agency. It was called Maximum Media. And that was when we worked with Cam, and we worked with Ted Nugent. We worked with a lot of different big hunting industry clients.
Ted, that guy. I never met him, but
we'll have to get you connected with him. Maybe get him on the podcast, right?
He's somewhere in Texas, right? He's not far from here, right?
So his Texas ranch is outside of Waco. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I've been there several times. It's awesome. He seems
like a character.
Awesome guy, man. and his son Toby has become one of my really good friends over the years. And
that's awesome.
Just obviously, then they brought me in to help him with his marketing and stuff like that. So that was one of my businesses. That was my first business that we really did well with. I had a business partner in that. And then from there, I started understanding how social media works and marketing. I built all these niche social media pages that were hunting related. And this is back when Facebook was first starting. So I took all these pages, built like millions of fans, like millions, like over 5 million fans on all the pages. And then I started a website called outdooroverload.com.
Wow.
And it was basically like a content website where I was driving traffic to the website. I had ads on the website and I was making money through ad revenue through that. So it was really cool. Like I built that business up pretty good. Ended up selling that to a company out of Austin. It was my competition. They were doing the same thing. And they're like, oh, we're going to buy you out. I was like, all right, let's go.
Man, that's a good feeling.
And it was cool. It was really cool. It was at a good time because I just gotten married at that point and just had my first child. And I was going through a lot of transition in my life. I was going through a lot of growth as well. Obviously when you have a child, you start to grow a lot and level up. So it was good for me to change from working 18 to 20 hours a day on building this business to going to focus on spending time with my wife and my daughter at that point. So it was a good transition for me. But in the back of my mind, so I started doing some consulting still with clients, really slowed down my work though. I wasn't, putting in those 18 hour days. I was just trying to work a normal job like anybody else and provide for my family. There's a lot of ups and downs in there. I'll skip through all that. But, I always had this entrepreneurial thing. Like, I was like, all right, what's my next business going to be? And that's where I started a podcast called Activate the Hunt. And I was kind of telling you about that earlier, where it was like, I want to help people get into hunting. But then I realized like I had my identity wrapped so much into hunting that it was actually, it wasn't really where I wanted to go. Like hunting is part of my life and I love it. And it's my passion, but it's not my identity. It's not what I want my identity to be. So I was like, maybe I shouldn't focus so much on the hunting aspect of it, but more focus on like the aspect of like the growth. You know what I mean? Like the idea that, we always have this opportunity to level up and grow, because that's kind of where I was at in my life as well. So I nixed that whole deal. And then eventually it came to where I started High Caliber Hunts. And I was like, all right, I'm going to bring this idea of immersing a hunting camp with this idea of bringing men together who are on this path of growth and bring us together so we can, like I was telling you earlier, the idea is, hey, we're coming shoulder to shoulder as men. Like men don't typically go sit down and have, like, we used to go to the coffee shops and stuff like that, but we don't just sit down, oh, kumbaya, have coffee together. Hey, how's it going? Like that's where small talk is happening. If you're doing that kind of stuff, it's a lot of small talk and there's not any good deep depth to those conversations. Women do that and they can have a good deep conversation. Men, we just don't. We talk about the weather and and like, that's not where growth happens. You know what I mean? So I was like, we need to be going towards something. And there's actually a lot of books and research and stuff around that. Like when men are growing to their fullest potential, it's because they're doing stuff together as men. They're growing, they're going out for runs together. They're maybe going on a hike together. They're going camping, fishing, hunting.
You have like a mutual struggle or mutual goal.
Yeah, mutual challenge. They're doing some kind of challenge together. And that's kind of where I was like, man, it'd be kind of cool. Like the challenge of a hunt immersed with this hunting camp experience where we have food, we have time for conversation and campfire talks. And we even have on the other side, the challenge of like speaking into each other's lives openly. And, so we'll sit around the campfire in a high caliber hunting camp and I'll be very intentional about opening up, about some of the struggles I'm going through, like, and what happens and what's is said in these camps stays there. You know what I mean? That's kind of one of the things that we talk about. What happens here, stays here. But I'll open up and I'll talk about my struggles, my marriage, my life, the things there's guys talking about porn and different things like that. They're these deep, dark struggles that they're having, we need to get those things out and get them into the light. I truly believe that as a Bible believing Christian, it talks a lot about the light and getting things out into the light. And, so that was kind of that other side of it. It's like, this is going to give men an opportunity to do something cool together and challenging together, but also have this whole other side it's going to make an impact, not just on them in that moment, but essentially hopefully they're going to go home energized and refreshed, maybe have a new community of guys that they can trust and reach out to, where they can go home and be a better dad, a better husband, better business leader, better community leader, those kinds of things. So
I love that.
So yeah, man, it's really cool. I fully started that last year. We did 2 camps in the spring of last year, pig hunts. A lot of fun, a lot of new hunters coming in on that. A lot of guys, and then this year I just did 2 more camps this spring.
Nice.
So we've done 4 full camps. I also do some thermal hog hunts, some other stuff as well, but the camps is really my passion, bringing men together in that setting. And it's really cool. I've got, being in the hunting industry all these years, I've got some great relationships.
Right.
I've got a lot of great partners that have come on board as part of this, supporting this, providing product to me. One of the cool things about the future is I'm going to partner up with some nonprofit organizations and some different organizations within the hunting space that want to see more impact as well. They really truly believe in this idea of bringing men together to help us grow as individuals so we can go back home and make that impact on our families. And that's why I'm doing this. This isn't a self-serving thing. Like, I never thought of this from, how can I make the most money in this thing?
Right.
Like, it was actually finally one of those business ideas where I was like, this would be a cool way to make money, but how can I truly make a really deep impact?
Yeah.
I think once you have that mind shift that mindset shift in your life, where it's not just about serving yourself, but about serving others, that's a really fulfilling place. And that's where I'm at now. I'm at this place where I'm very fulfilled in what I'm doing with High Caliber Hunts, because it's going to help other people, and it's helping me too. It's helping me too, because I get to bring a lot of super high caliber guys around me in these hunting camps. So from there, I was like, well, because I have guys saying like, well, how can we stay connected? How can we stay connected through this?
Right.
And I was like, man, I guess I've got to start like another side to this, like maybe a mastermind or a community side to this. And it's like, what does that look like? So that's where High Caliber Nation has kind of come. It's like, all right, I've got this idea where it's not out there yet, but it's hopefully middle of this year. My goal is to launch it by Q3. Basically, it's going to be called High Caliber Nation, the core, and that's going to be a mastermind. And
that's amazing.
It'll be a paid mastermind. So these guys got to be serious about growth and want to actually invest in each other and invest in their growth. Come in, and we're going to have deep conversation. We're going to have weekly calls. You're going to get discounts on coming on hunts and different things. We're going to do different immersive events, 3D shoots. Like, there's a lot of really cool ideas around camp outs, stuff like that. There's a lot of really cool ideas, but the idea is bringing men together to stay connected, to have these deeper conversations, have this accountability that we need as men. And then I'm in the works of building out a kind of like a framework, I guess. I've learned some different frameworks by being part of other masterminds and having other mentors. And I think when you start to build habits, especially as like a coach, like you have to have good habits in your life. And we've talked all about that on this conversation already, like just the habits of building out a routine for, going towards a race or something like that. So I find there's a lot of men that don't even have the simple habits of a morning routine, or, how do I go from point A to point B? Like, what's that look like? And what's the backwards planning to that? So, there's a lot of cool books around, 90-day planning, backwards planning, battle planning, a lot of that kind of stuff. So I'm actually working on building out my own framework, taking ideas from, it's not my own, it's just taking ideas from different things and kind of bringing them together in my own way, where we will use that as the basis of this mastermind to help us accomplish the things that are important in our faith, our family, our fitness, our finances, and then also fun. I think doing fun things in life is very important as well, and working towards fun things. So that's kind of where I'm headed, is building that out. That hasn't launched yet, but that's definitely a big part of it. And that's my passion, is ultimately that part of it, because I think that's where you're going to see the most growth as individuals, as men, in our communities and our families. Now, I am a coach as well. So I'm doing some, like, the low hanging fruit of this was like, man, I can be a fitness coach and start to bring some clients in and do some of that. So I am doing some of that right now and some performance coaching, but I was like, man, I think the group coaching or the group community aspect of it would be way better, because I just love connecting with people and, leading calls and different things like that. So
yeah, dude, I think you're absolutely crushing it, man. Like, you're having such a big impact on so many people, and like being able to provide that. I don't want to call it counseling, but like, I guess in a way it is. It's like,
it's real life counseling.
Yeah, it's like how men kind of do things. It's like we get together with other people. We're like-minded. We all want to just get better, and it's all like behind this curtain of hunting, or like you're able to like I said, have like that mutual challenge,
Yeah.
and bring people together, and like you're a little bit more vulnerable in those types of scenarios. Like I
Yes.
feel like that's such it's kind of a growing thing now where I've seen a lot of these things like where you go out and you almost do like some Navy SEAL type of
Yeah.
training,
Yeah.
but really it's just like it's the same
Breaking
thing
you
of
down.
making you vulnerable, and
Yep.
like that's I don't know. I just love what you're doing, man. I think you're killing. I'm excited to see where it all goes from here. I think
I'm
you're just gonna
excited
keep-
about it. Every day is an adventure with it too. It's
Yeah.
like, man, like God, where are you leading me in this? Like, where's this going? Like, I'm just trying to figure it out every day. I'll be honest, man. Like it doesn't just come to me. It's like trying to work through it and figure it out. And like, what's going to bring value to people? What's going to help you? What's going to help me selfishly a little bit too? Like, is this going to help me in the sense of like bringing the right people, continuing to bring the right people around me? Yeah, it is. So
it's so relatable. Like hearing your story, like so many people I think can relate, and I'm sure that's part of the reason why you've been able to attract all these people, because it's like you've been through all this shit. You can speak from experience. It's like what it's like, and you can be empathetic towards them, and you can
absolutely
relate with them, and they can relate to you
on a real level. Like here's the thing, man. I really believe that our mess is our message. You know what I mean? I'm sure you've probably heard that before, but I truly believe that. And I'm not ashamed of the things I've done in the past. I talk about them openly on podcasts. I talk about them openly on my social media. I talk about the things I'm working on. I get vulnerable. It's not easy to do that. I can tell you. I mean, as men, we know that it's not easy to get vulnerable. I had to have a vulnerable conversation with one of my good friends this morning on the drive here. And it was really hard for me to have that conversation with him because I have a lot of respect for him and he has a lot of respect for me. And I don't ever want somebody to look at me in a bad light. But I know that by me being authentic and honest and open about some of the things I'm struggling with right now he's going to be there for me as a man. He's going to pray for me. He's going to love on me. He's going to check in with me. He's going to hold me accountable. But then also that impacted through that growth and that deep work that I'm doing through that, and having that person there to help me with that and be along shoulder to shoulder with me, like we were talking about, is going to lead me to this point, hopefully, where, like that resonates with the next guy I meet who's going through that same issue, right? Like what you're saying. Yeah. So our mess is our message. Everything that we go through in life is an opportunity to learn and grow. We always have an opportunity to become something greater, I believe. No matter what, you never reach the top of the mountain, man. And if you do, like that's pride. Like we always have a chance to keep leveling up and growing. Ultimately for me as a man of faith, like I can't do that myself though. Like I truly believe that I need God's strength to help me through that. So I lean on God a lot, and I have to get in prayer. I have to get in some quiet moments and lean on him, but he's given me strength and courage and endurance through these different things. And it's really, it's going to a cool place, and I know it's just a start. So hopefully it makes a big impact. Like I said, hopefully it makes a big impact on other people too.
100%, dude. I think I know you're on the right trajectory. I'm so excited to see where it all goes from here. Obviously you're doing a lot of things, like the training, your family, your business, all this stuff. Like, what does a day in the life look like? How do you balance all these different things?
Yeah. That's a good. I get asked that a lot, actually. And I kind of feel like the balance thing is gonna become part of my platform, or my like who I am, I guess, or maybe my identity a little bit, because I've become good at that in a sense. But I also have a very supportive wife and a family, which really plays into that. It's a big part of it. But man, for me, like on a regular day, I get up usually 4:30 in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but I've had to learn how to do that. I've got 3 kids. I've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So it's chaotic, but my family is very important to me. So I think it's very important for me to be involved as much as I can. And my mornings are with my family. Or mostly with my family. So I get up usually 3 days a week. I'll go work out early. I'll go stretch and mobility and do my morning lift. I'll come back. I'll come back. And by that time, my kids, it's probably 7 o'clock. Kids are getting up and going. They got to be to school by 8:30. So I'm helping my wife, get them breakfast, get lunches made. Our girls go to a private Christian academy. So which is about 20 miles down the road. So it's really cool. Like most days I actually get to throw them in the truck and get to bring them to academy and get to pray with them and spend time with them, and have that morning experience with them. Now it's not always perfect. I don't want to paint this picture like every day it's perfect. Like we do this exactly. There's no chaos. It's chaotic. Like
even this morning you text me, you're like, I'm gonna be a little bit late. The kids were sick. Like,
girls got sick last night. The AC went out. Like it was just like a chaotic night. But yeah, it's just life, you know,
Yeah.
and not every day is going to be perfect. I think how you go through that and how you respond to that is what again, more growth
Mhm.
comes from. So, but a regular day, that a good day, that's what it's like, in the mornings. And then I come back usually, and my 2-year-old son's there with my wife, and usually we try to pray together. We do a devotional together. It usually takes us like 20 minutes, 30 minutes for that. My wife's love language is time spent together
Oh,
in that.
nice.
So that I'm trying to work on that. That's
Yeah.
something that's one of my things I'm working on
Dude,
right
those love
now.
languages.
Huge,
It's
man.
real.
It's a game changer. Once you figure that out on both sides, it's an
Yeah.
absolute game changer for sure.
Mhm.
It's really helped me a lot. So I really try to focus on that. That's kind of part of my planning and my habit building right now, on a performance side of my life. So from there, man, I'll usually, some days I'll fast in the mornings. Just depends if I've lifted or not. On days I lift, I'm usually eating a good bread because I'm hungry after lifting. I'm trying to
Right.
get protein in and stuff like that. But usually by then, by around 10 o'clock, I'm either in the home office or there's a co-working space downtown about 15 minutes away, and
Nice.
traffic's usually cleared up by then. So I'll go down there, just cruise down there, and work for 4 or 5 hours, and hammer out, client work and working on these other business ideas I have, and just kind of going through some of that kind of stuff. And then by that time, I'm, coming back home to, my wife is home with the kid. The kids get home by 4 o'clock. So 4:30, 5 o'clock. Um, I'm helping with the kids, probably getting supper ready. One of the things we try to do is have supper together as a family every night. I
Nice.
think that's important as well. That's something we've worked on
Yeah.
as a family. I think that's a lost thing these days too, is
Mhm.
families sit down for supper. I think a lot of good conversation. It's tough when they're young right now, but I think as we get older, that
Right.
habit's going to be built where they're going to love that. They're going to enjoy that.
100%.
So we try to do that. And then my wife, like, I want her to train. I want her to enjoy the things she enjoys. And she's an awesome wife. She takes care of the kids. She does all the home stuff. She's a stay-at-home mom and wife for the most part. She does some eBay selling, some little
Oh,
things like
nice.
that to help make ends meet for us. But
That's great that you can do that though.
well, and here's the thing, man. Like, we have this idea in our culture today. It's 9 to 5. You know what I mean? Everybody
Yeah.
thinks that, like, you have to live this 9 to 5 life. Well, for us, like, we don't really care about having the big house and the big cars and stuff like that. We live pretty frugally, to be
Mhm.
honest, and we've had a lot of help from our in-laws as well. So, they've allowed us to stay in the guest house for a couple years, which has been really cool. So that helps with our bills, where we don't have to pay as much on our
Right.
rent and stuff like that. We can invest more time into, like, the idea of building these businesses and building a different lifestyle than a lot of people do. A lot of people are keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Right.
And I just don't believe in that. I don't really care about all the other things. For us, we honestly, we spend most of our money on trips and stuff like that,
Yeah.
investing in experiences together. And that's where, like, the running and the training, my wife is really getting into that too, where we really want to go. Honestly, it would be really cool to have, like, a camper trailer that we pull a pole behind,
Oh,
where
yeah.
we go travel to these different races all over the US together as a family, and run them together.
That's
And
awesome.
then, that's kind of part of our lifestyle. So we don't, like, we could potentially homeschool we have homeschooled as well, our
Nice.
girls a little bit, but they're going to academy right now. But
Yeah, I think the investing in experiences over material things, like we've started to realize that too. Like Bree and I have, like, we'd much rather spend a few $1,000s on, like, a vacation somewhere and
yes,
go and see a new part of the world and, like, try new foods and be a part of a new
yes,
culture, rather than, like, buy a new couch or some, like, material
yeah,
shit that's, like,
yeah.
you're probably never gonna use it that
I
much
know
anyways.
you don't.
Like,
You don't end up using it that
yeah, and
much.
even, like, traveling for a race or something.
Yep.
Like, I'd much rather invest time and money into that than some material shit, because it's the material thing. It makes you feel good for a little bit, and it's nice for, like, a short period of time.
Yeah.
But you get used to it. But it's those experiences. That's what life's all about.
Well, I had a mentor say to me one time. He's like, do you remember what you got for Christmas last year?"
Nope.
Nope. Do you remember the last trip you took? Yeah, every
Yeah.
time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Those are your memories.
think about that now. You ask your kids, "Hey, son, do you remember what I got you for Christmas last year?" They don't remember.
No.
They don't care. You know what I mean? Like, they play for a couple weeks and then it goes in the toy box. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that's kind of the lifestyle we're trying to kind of impart on our kids as well. Is
I
like,
love that.
hey, this isn't just about, the things and the stuff, and, like, let's
Yeah.
have experiences. Let's enjoy time together as a family. So we're kind of anti-culture, in the sense of, like, we're
Yeah.
bucking the system versus what everybody who's living the 9 to 5 lifestyle. Like, I've always been the entrepreneur. My
Mhm.
wife, she almost has a master's degree in nutrition, and she's just a stay-at-home mom, and
Yeah.
that's one of the hardest jobs I think there is, honestly, out
Yeah.
there, is being a stay-at-home mom. But you have to work together. Like, it's got to
Yeah.
be teamwork together. That obviously doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody's going to live the same lifestyle as us, but that's what works really well for
Yeah.
us. So
I think being a little bit of a contrarian or a lot of a contrarian, I think that's the key to life, to be honest. Like everybody spends so much time and energy trying to fit in
be like everybody
and be like
else.
everybody else and be average and be normal, quote
Yeah.
unquote. But like in my experience, or all the people that I know that are doing cool things that
Yeah.
have freedom and
Freedom.
they're making a big impact. They're the people that go against the grain, forging their own path and doing things differently.
Yeah.
And you're exactly one of those types of people.
You'll find out as we become more, as we spend more and more time together. That's exactly who I am, and for better or for worse too. Because there's a lot, there's a lot of lessons I had to learn the hard way because of
Right.
that. But ultimately, I think that has set me up in life to, to live a better life because I enjoy, bucking the system, and I enjoy what comes with that, now. So we're like I said, we're imparting that on our kids. And, I think that that's going to be a good thing for them in the future as well. I don't want my kids to look like every other kid out there. I want them to be different. I want them to stand out in the right way, and
Right.
be an example and a leader, and help others and serve others, and be gracious and kind and godly to others. So, you have to be different, in that, to do that. So, but yeah, man, that's kind of and I come home, I guess I'll finish up my day. We'll do supper together. My wife trains, so she goes to what's called Camp Gladiator. So she likes to go do that. I don't know if you've ever heard of that
I
before.
don't. I don't know what it
It's
is.
kind of like a CrossFit style workout without like bars and stuff. It's like
Oh, cool.
you're using dumbbells, and you're using, like, you got a mat and stuff. You can do it anywhere. You can do these workouts anywhere. But so she goes. It's like group
That's
coaching
awesome.
that can be done in any city park, basically. So she goes and does that. And then she'll usually either that, or she'll go for a couple mile run, get her run in and stuff like that. And then she'll come back, and by that time we're getting the kids ready for bed, and saying prayers and tucking them in. And my little 2-year-old, he still likes to spend time with mommy, because he's got to get his milk in every night. So there's a lot of time spent there with him. Hopefully he can outgrow that here soon. But yeah, just a lot of time. But man, that's my day, man. And we're usually trying to get to bed by 10 o'clock, and 10:30, 11 o'clock, somewhere around there, because I like to get up early. So yeah, man, that's a typical day in my life. That's a good day in my life. I like having a busy day, but I also like having that time to relax in the evening.
Yeah.
And we don't watch TV, like I'll watch some YouTube stuff. I go for runs, so I'll listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
I guess I forgot to talk about my run. I'll usually run in there too at some point, either before supper or after my wife trains, somewhere
Nice.
in there typically as well. So, but yeah, I think that if you are intentional about how you want to spend your days, you can accomplish a lot. You can have the balance you want, because I'm very intentional. And my wife is also very, very helpful in how we do stuff, because I do travel a lot, and I'm, doing these hunts, and there's a lot of weekends I'm gone, but when we're home together as a family, we spend time together, and we have our routine. And even when we're traveling together as a family, that routine, we try to keep that routine the same, because it's what works for us. It's harder, obviously, when you're traveling, but it's important for us to have that good routine and have that balance. It's what we need. And that's, again, I'm teaching my kids that.
Right.
So
Yeah, just giving up like all those, trivial things like watching TV and keeping up with all these Netflix shows and all this shit that like people think that that's like has to be a staple of their routine, and like then they're like, I don't have time to go work out, or I don't have time to run, I don't have time to start a business. It's like, no, you just got to sacrifice those other things, those comfort things.
Your priorities are someplace else, man.
Exactly. It's
Like,
all about priorities.
I don't even know what are the series right now on Netflix.
I don't even know.
The only series that I've really been watching lately is some of Nick Bear stuff on YouTube, and then some of campaign stuff. So it's
Yeah.
like, and then typically I'm searching for like training type stuff. I'm learning,
Right.
I'm Peter Attia and
Yeah.
Huberman and a lot of that kind of stuff. So I'm immersing myself into learning and growth.
Right.
And like, I don't know, I don't look at that as, I look at that as enjoyable. I like
Right.
that kind of content. So
Exactly.
especially when we're running, like I listen to a ton of podcasts. I immerse myself in books. I try to read scripture and stuff like that. So my time is very intentional, man. Time is an asset. Time is something we don't get back. So
Yep.
I'm trying to spend that time doing those kinds of things. Now, like, I like sports. I like baseball. I like watching baseball. I like all these other things, but you have to kind of you got to come to a point where you just sacrifice some things and don't immerse yourself as much into certain areas. Right. So that shift has happened in my life, and I'm happy with it because I'd rather it be the way it is now. You know, my life full of my family and the balance of that and my training, and I love it. It's and most people don't even like. I look at my family's like, all you do is train. Like, no, I don't. Like, that's just what I post about sometimes because that's a big part of my life. But they're like, how do you have time for all these different things and this and that? And I'm like, I just do. I make it a priority, you know? So,
it's all about like the long-term or the short-term sacrifice for the long-term gains and not being short-sighted and being forward-looking and just understanding like, okay, if I make the hard choices now, like everything else is going to be way better down the road.
Yep.
But dude, 100%. I mean, you're crushing it. You're doing so many amazing things. This is a really fun conversation. I had all these notes and like we just naturally kind of went over all of them. Like normally I'm like looking down, asking questions, but like I don't know.
That's how it should go, right?
It is super natural. Like it was. I could sit here and talk all day, but we've got a trail run to hit. We've got some food to eat.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, man. Instagram's obviously the easiest place. I haven't been doing as good. I'm not as good as you on my content. I need to hire you to do my content for me.
Dude, the content. That's where it's all at.
You're crushing it, bro, man. It's awesome. But no, man, Instagram's a good place. I love to connect with people. So if you obviously heard me here on Jeremy's awesome podcast, like hit me up, drop me a message, let me know you heard me here so we can stay connected. And then if you want to find out more about what I'm doing, you can just go to collincottrell.com. Super simple, makes it easy. That's it, man. That's it. Let's get after a little bit of a run. Hopefully you got some good food places around here.
We've got some good food in the queue. I'm ready for it.
All right.
Dude, well, thanks for coming on, man. This was a ton of fun.
Appreciate it.
You're doing some truly amazing things, impacting a lot of people. So I appreciate
it, man.
You're killing it, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Heck yeah.
Appreciate
All right. Well, we'll see you later. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one.